Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Vincent.
How are you?
It's a little smoky in the air, but I'm doing okay.
Okay, stay inside. Stay inside. Okay. So you develop, I would say, a non-profit city startup called Street for All. So
Yes.
I would like to, if you could introduce and present your initiative that gives some ideas for European cities that are watching what you're doing. Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Great. Thank you. And I want to move to Helsinki after that last presentation. That was really great. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And let's see if technology is... Can everyone... can you see a big Hollywoodland sign?
Yes, you are on the edge of Hollywood. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So good morning, everybody, or good evening for you. I'm Michael Schneider. I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, and I'm the founder of an organization called Streets for All. And before I talk about how I think we can actually change things in a car-loving city like Los Angeles, I want to take you back in time a little bit. So if you've been to LA, or even if you haven't, I'm sure you've heard of Beverly Hills. This is a prominent intersection, Santa Monica and Cannon, right in the heart of Beverly Hills in 1956. And you'll notice something very strange. You'll notice a streetcar on it. Today, of course, this is a 2-hour free parking garage. So we took what used to be clean public transportation and made it for cars. But it wasn't always that way. LA, many people don't realize this, in the 1920s, had the largest urban rail system in the world. This is what it looked like. There were red cars, yellow cars, that's what it was called. Pacific Electric operated a lot of them. And we had this system for decades until we dismantled it in 1961. And this really sent Los Angeles back in time to the really old ages where you have to have a car to get around, but it wasn't always that way. And if you've seen the movie LA Story by Steve Martin, or if you haven't, I recommend it. Half the movie's theme is about walking in LA and how nobody walks in LA and you have to drive. And there's a scene where he drives 5 houses down to see his friend on the same street. And I understand this mentality because I'm born and raised here. And I used to do this. This is a map showing where I used to live and the market I used to go to, a Whole Foods market. And the video you're seeing is actually a music video. Someone made a rap about the Whole Foods market parking lot and how stressful it is to find parking places and everyone's jockeying for a space. And so the absurdity of driving 5 blocks to the supermarket and fighting for parking and then complaining there isn't enough and going home and driving 5 blocks back, that used to be me. So I really do understand this mentality, but we have to make a change. About 10 years ago in the financial crisis, I had to give up my big expensive BMW lease, and my grandfather was nice enough to lend me this old Mercedes that looked really beautiful and broke down about every week. So this is a real picture of someone trying to fix it. And this caused me to rethink my life and how I got around town. And about 9 years ago, my then girlfriend, now wife, got me a beautiful used, very old Schwinn bike. And I started treating it like my car. And this is a real picture of my car parked in my parking space at my apartment. And about 8 years ago, I went all in. I gave up my car completely, and I just started biking around Los Angeles on a good old-fashioned bike. This is a picture I took a couple years ago. I was on my way to London for a week. And so I biked to LAX. It takes less than an hour door to door. And this is my carry-on luggage in a trailer. This may be very common in Europe, but this is very unusual in Los Angeles. 5 years ago, my wife and I started having our kids. We have 3 now. And this is a picture of me taking my kids around on a bike. I take them to school every morning on a bike. Again, not unusual in Europe, pretty unusual in Los Angeles. And I just want to give you guys some perspective. You can fit the entire cities of St. Louis, Cleveland, Minneapolis, Milwaukee, San Francisco, Boston, and Pittsburgh, all in the city of Los Angeles, and still have more room. It's huge. Paris is 104 square kilometers, and LA is 1,300 square kilometers. So it's 12.5 times as large. So that gives us a lot of roads to do either good things on or very bad things like making them just for cars. The political structure of Los Angeles is like this. There are 15 council districts. Each council member oversees about 250,000 people, and they make more money than members of Congress. When the system was formed in the 1920s, LA had about 1/10 of the population and 15 council members. And as we've grown so much, we still only have 15 council members. New York City, just to give you some contrast, has 52. So we need to change this. We also have 99 what we call neighborhood councils. So these are the most local form of government. And these are elected people that are volunteers that serve part-time roles to function within just their neighborhood. So our mayor, Mayor Garcetti, is the new chair of the C40. Of course, the previous chair is Anne Hidalgo. And let me show you our mobility plan. The city council passed a mobility plan in 2015 called the 2035 Mobility Plan. Everything that you see there in orange is a bus lane, dedicated bus lane. Everything you see there in dark green is a protected bike lane, protected by cars or bollards. And everything you see in blue are painted bike lanes. So this plan is not perfect, but if it was implemented, it would go a long way. Unfortunately, it's not really being implemented. This is a central part of Los Angeles here, and the green represent bike lanes. And you notice there's not very many in the middle, and they don't always connect to each other. So this is really not a network. To show it to you a little bit differently, this is the mobility plan zoomed into that same area. This is how much has been implemented, a few miles. So do you want to see that again? Here's the plan. Here's how much has been implemented. And part of the challenge we have here is NIMBYism, not in my backyard. People love to sue over bike lanes. People love to start petitions to try to kick elected officials out of office for approving bike lanes. It's very, very controversial, and each council member has a lot of power in their district to do or not do things, where our mayor doesn't have a lot of power, unlike Paris. So this has been very frustrating. So a few years ago, I decided to get involved. I got myself appointed to the Los Angeles Bicycle Advisory Committee. This is a mayoral committee where I represent one of the council members. I ran for and got elected to Mid-City West Community Council. This is my neighborhood council, and I chair our transportation committee. Just to the west is Beverly Hills. The north is West Hollywood, if you know LA, just to give you a sense of where it is. And I started Streets for All, which is Los Angeles's very first transportation-focused PAC, Political Action Committee. So we have the ability to raise and spend money on candidates that are going to make our lives a lot easier and implement things like bike lanes and bus lanes. And you'll notice there's a car in our logo. We are not anti-car. We are just pro freedom of choice with transportation and don't believe you should have to risk your life to get where you're going outside of a car. So what change does Los Angeles need? Well, number one, we need a network of protected bike lanes or mobility lanes where scooters can use them too. It's very logical. If people feel safe biking, don't feel like they're going to die doing it, many more people will do it. 50% of the trips in LA County are under 3 miles. It's about 5 kilometers. It's very short. So a lot of those could be converted to bikes or scooters if we gave them good infrastructure. It gets very hot here in the summer. We think we need a lot more shade. We need more trees and bus shelters when you're waiting for the bus. We also think buses should have their own lane, so they go a lot faster than private cars. We want scooters and micromobility to be part of the conversation, so we want dedicated space for them on the road. And we want pedestrian improvements. Again, more shade trees, what we call scramble crosswalks, where you can cross all four corners at the same time. And so Streets for All is really spending a lot of time trying to figure out how do we accomplish these things. And there's 4 main things that we do. Number one, we support people running for city council and for office that share our values. We give them a questionnaire ahead of time, and they have to commit to doing certain things to get our endorsement. We're trying to build the largest community of activated citizens so we can tell them when to show up at a meeting, call, make public comments, make their voice heard. And we're trying to get on the ground real improvements and work with other parties that have been doing this work a lot longer than us to really make change happen quickly. So here are a few things that give me hope. We have this thing called Ciclavia. This used to be once a year, then once every 6 months. Then before the pandemic, it was once every 3 months. And it's completely closed off to cars, and the little children on their bikes is just so great to watch. This is going to be monthly soon in the city. There's a bike boom here. The LA Times wrote about this. I don't know why that's a picture of San Francisco in their article, but in LA, you can't go buy a bike. They're sold out. And we're considering projects like this. This is a project called Uplift Melrose, near where I live, and it looks beautiful, except our council member killed it. So I wrote a Medium post about this. This just happened last week. I was very upset. This was $40 million that we would have gotten from the state of California to improve the street and make it look like that and have LA's very first curb level protected bike lane. And the council member decided he didn't want to inconvenience people driving and turn down the money or the potential money. So it's very frustrating. So we really want to implement the mobility plan. This program called Adapt means our city is repaving our roads really quickly because traffic is so down during COVID-19. Everywhere you see a red line, they're repaving. So we keep an eye on this and try to get them to implement the bike lanes when they're doing that. So this can really speed things up. We recently got slow streets implemented. The slow streets are places for people to walk or bike or run in neighborhood streets while slowing down traffic. And this woman named Nifia Rahman is running for city council, and we're supporting her this coming November. The last thing that gives me hope is your mayor. She just ran a campaign on the 15-minute city and removing parking, and she won. So I find that very inspiring. So let's keep in touch. You can follow me here and email me here, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael.